Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of History After Hours. My name is Kevin Pumphrey, and with me is Emily Diedrich, Ron Franklin, and Jeremy Nixon. We are four history teachers from Lakeside High School in beautiful Hot Springs, Arkansas. The date is September 7th, 2023, and we are recording our first episode of Season 9. We've been doing this 9 years. We're doing this live at Collective Coffee with a bunch of students looking at us, and they ask us all sorts of questions, everything from serious to silly. So with that being said, we hope you enjoy the podcast. Okay, it is History After Hours. This is our first episode of Season 9. We are at Collective Coffee, and I am staring at a bunch of very enthused students waiting for their lives to change. So here we go with our first question.
Hi, I'm Spencer Moore, and I was wondering, with the current political climate, what do you think in Trump's situation, what are the chances of him getting reelected?
50-50.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably an accurate assessment. You've got about 57 to 60% of the GOP saying that they are going to support him regardless. So it looks like his path to the nomination is pretty clear. And unless some major news breaks that we don't already know about, I think it'll be a rematch of the last go-round.
By the way, question. Coincidence that his trial is the day before Super Tuesday?
Well, it starts. It'll take a while.
That's when the trial starts.
So are we going down the conspiracy rabbit hole? Like, what are we doing here?
Well, I mean, he wanted the date to be in 2027 or whatever. Then they said something about January, and they moved it just coincidentally the day before Super Tuesday, which is, some would say, the most important day of the election season because that's when it all kicks off. Was that, I mean, it's just a coincidence.
Super Tuesday's about the primary, though, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if that's the case, and he has a commanding lead, do you think that evaporates just because it's on the day before? I mean,
I think everything's helped him.
I don't
so
know
far.
that. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that might actually give him fuel to push more people out there saying, "Look what they're trying to do to me." I think that might, in a weird way, help him. Some people go, "They're trying to cut him out." I don't know that this is detrimental.
I don't think it is detrimental. I think it's playing into exactly what he wants to do with his base and what he needs to do with his base. And, you know, there are 4 trial dates set now. They start anywhere from February into March. And look, you know, legal stuff gets delayed, it gets postponed. So I would be really surprised if all the trial dates hold.
Is the one that you're talking about before Super Tuesday the federal case, or is it one of the state, or is it the Georgia thing?
Lord.
Do you know which one it is?
Georgia, I think.
It's hard to keep track.
Yeah, there are 2. If you don't know, there are 2 state trials, one in New York, one in Georgia, and then 2 federal. One will be impaneled in D.C. and one will be impaneled in Florida. So there you go.
Are we in agreement then that we think that he has a good shot at actually winning the general?
He has a great shot.
Yeah.
I think so too.
I mean,
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but during the first Republican debate, didn't the primary candidates, almost all of them, raise their hand saying they would support him even if he's charged?
What was it? Chris Christie and
Yes.
Who was the other one?
Probably
Hutchinson?
Asa Hutchinson, yeah.
Hutchinson. Yeah, it's gonna be. If you're an American history student, or government or any of this, really, we're in unprecedented waters. We have had a presidential candidate in jail that got millions of votes. His name was Eugene V. Debs, a socialist, an admitted socialist, early before World War I, or right after World War I. Or he was,
Why was he in jail?
Why was he in jail?
Because he was a socialist.
Yeah, I mean, he was. I don't remember the actual
before World
charge.
War I, there was a lot of anti.
This was
socialist
during
movement.
like the whole you can't make people dodge the draft. It was the whole.
Yeah, I was about to say, I believe it was a speech-related charge promoting things that you're not supposed to promote during that time period.
Yeah, he was against the war.
Yeah.
It's a capitalist war, which of course keeps ringing up until World War II, which kept us out of World War II for a long time. But so it's not like unheard of that a presidential candidate would be in prison at the time of the election. This is different because he might be the actual main Republican nominee. Eugene V. Debs was 4th on the ticket. So, I don't know. This is going to be a constitutional, interesting time.
So there's a lot of things that could change between now and actual election, like the general election in 2024.
Yeah.
Well, Well, including Republicans could change their rules and not make him the nominee.
What do you mean?
Parties can do that. They can.
If he wins the primary, they can still say no.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that. What are the chances?
I mean, that hasn't really happened since the 60s of the Democratic Convention in '68.
A conviction makes him a martyr, in my opinion.
Then he
More people
creates
got
his
a lot
own
behind him.
party.
They're stronger with him as this victim, if you will.
Yeah.
than
I'm
the
just
vote.
saying
And
it's
besides
possible.
that, Uncle Joe ain't getting any younger.
No one in elected office is
Is it
getting
weird
younger.
that 77 sounds young?
Yes,
when
that
you
is a
compare that
problem.
by the
Just
time
ask
election
any of my
comes,
gov
Biden will be
kids.
81? 81? Is that right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, nothing
Yeah.
against. I'm not trying to be ageist. I'm just saying, like,
Well, I am.
oh, okay.
I mean, just think the Senate right now, the average age of our senators is insane.
All right, let's talk about Mitch McConnell.
And Feinstein
No,
and
and
Chuck
Feinstein, there's a
Grassley
lot of them,
and all of them who are literally being propped up and wheeled in. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but literally being wheeled into wheelchairs into the building.
They did that with her.
Yes,
right?
I know. Yeah.
Is there somebody moving her mouth for her? Is it that too? Is it like puppet show? Marionette? Animatronic?
Weekend at Biden's.
Weekend at Biden. That is
Oh,
a
That
Well,
went way over
okay,
like
show of hands.
90%.
My bad.
How many of you actually know what he's talking about when he says weekend at? There's a movie, Weekend at Bernie's. No, it counts. Yeah. So, a couple of you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Pretty dated
That
reference
one's
from the
It's okay.
80s.
It's freaking funny if you know what it is. Just saying. Yeah, go ahead. All right.
I'm Emily Williams, and I wanted to know if there's any superstitions that y'all follow, like knocking on wood and stuff.
Superstitions that we follow. Oh, I don't
Do you throw
think
salt
so.
over your shoulder to get it in the devil? Or left shoulder. So if you
When
throw
I
salt-
played sports, I had some superstition that, I had a good game, so I kept doing the same thing. I don't think I do anything.
I've actually heard that about sports dudes. Like they'll wear the same like underwear.
I didn't do
because
that.
they Win. Some baseball guy, I can't think of his name, but I had a winning game, and so I won't change. I don't know how that became the thing that he was focused on. My lucky underwear, and I won't even wash it until we lose again. So they were like, I don't want to wash the winning out of it or some crap. That's weird.
My ankle braces, I skipped a hole, and I had a 40-point game, and I laced them up the same way for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
It didn't help. I think I scored 2 points the next game, but I kept doing it. Maybe I don't know.
When did you give that up?
Yesterday.
I don't know. You and I talk about the full moon sometimes.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've even talked to students about it before. I can tell when there's a full moon based on how they behave in class.
How you all act.
But in general, I would say I'm kind of superstitious, just with the basic stuff like knocking on wood, spill the salt, throw it over my shoulder, just silly stuff that probably doesn't do anything.
Did
but-
you do that because you saw somebody do that when you were growing up, or did you just?
Yeah, my mom does that.
Your mom does that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That when you said the full moon thing, that reminded me I guess it's a decade or so ago. There were like blood moons, and I don't even remember what it constitutes a blood moon. Right? We had the super blue moon here recently, and a blue moon is when you have a full moon twice in the same month. That's what that is. So, and then the super blue moon is closer to us at that time. And so it gets weird. Okay, so people are like, so cool. But the blood moon, okay, and I had kids who were coming. I think it was in 2012, so it's also along with that, where it's like, do you guys know the story about 2012 and how people were freaking out about? No, okay, wow, you're so young.
We're old.
Well, I was
there's
their
actually-
age during all of that.
There's
You were
actually
their
a
age?
movie
Yeah,
that
I
you
was
could
in
watch. It's a
junior
pretty
high.
good disaster movie, 2012. Supposedly the planets were going to line up, and it was going to cause some sort of intergalactic calamity, and everything was going to come crashing down. And supposedly it had something to do with the Mayans. The freaking Mayan calendar was going to end at about the same time. So it's the end of the world, man. And then the freaking blood moons were attached to that as well. And I had a kid who came to me, and the kid was like, so Mr. Franklin, what do you think about the blood moon? And I was like, I don't think about the blood moon because I'm not superstitious. To go back to go back to your question, I don't I'll do like knock on wood or just to be funny, but I don't like believe it. Yeah, Nick, you don't have anything? Anybody you know do stuff like that?
No, not really.
Nobody in your family? Yeah,
No, I mean, probably if you go back, and
just Diedrich
talk
and her
to
mom.
The
maybe
magic.
like my great grandmother or beyond, but it'd be the similar things. But no,
The magic generally gets beaten out of you with age.
yeah, that's
Everything's
true.
magical when you're a kid, and there's Disneyland and all sorts of fairies and Santa. And then as you grow up, you're like,
There's no Santa.
nothing.
Okay, calm down.
Sorry.
There are children present.
I know. My bad.
I'm Lee Smith. My question is your opinion on if everyone thinks life isn't fair, is it fair to say that life is in fact fair?
I would say no.
Let me process that.
Yeah, take me a minute.
So if it's unfair for everybody, that's fair. Is that kind of what you're going for?
Applies equally
Kind
to
of, yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, it equally applies.
We all have that woe is me, attitude sometimes. Life's unfair. Me, I would point to an objective data and be like, okay, you think you have it bad. The average family in Nigeria is living on $645 a year, so you have more in your hand, most of you, than they do. So are we really going to talk about
Conversation
fairness?
about first world problems?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I would take it, but...
I think it's very human when something bad happens to you to have the why me moment because you don't think it'll happen, then it does, and you're like, why me? Life is not fair. But that can happen to anybody, no matter your wealth or where you live or anything. Bad things do happen. So in a way, I get your point. Life is unfair for everyone, so therefore it's fair.
I've noticed, though, that people who tend to be very organized in their lives, highly educated, have strong work ethic, most of those people very rarely complain about having bad luck.
I'm Mason McElrath, and I was wondering, regarding the nation's debt problem, can you explain, one, how we got there, and two, what we can do to fix it?
That's you, political
That's
boy.
me? Okay. Yeah. Well, so we got there in a lot of ways. We've been deficit spending pretty much...
FDR.
Yeah, I was about to say 1930s. And some before that as well. We have deficit spent every year since then, with the exception of 97, 98 during the Clinton administration, where there was a budget surplus. And so we're at, $33.45 trillion now? How we got there is how anyone gets in debt. You are spending more than you are taking in. And how you fix it is you cut spending or you raise taxes.
Don't you feel that never-ending war has contributed greatly to the situation? And I don't really see too many people talking about that aspect of it. Usually when they talk about we're overspending, usually they're talking about social programs. Usually they're talking about food for kids. Usually they're talking about Head Start programs. Usually they're talking about some sort of services to the population. Rarely do they ever go, man, we should really cut back on our military contractors' budgets.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But on the other hand, that's part of how we make our money.
Well, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but if you look at it, we're $750 billion in discretionary spending a year on the military. If you take the next 6 countries that spend on their military that are also developed countries, we still have the largest amount spent when you add all of theirs together. So the military-industrial complex is a real thing. War is profitable for a lot of people. And, I do think that that's part of it. And
if we cut too much of the military spending, our whole economy could tank because private corporations make a lot of money off of these government contracts. Right?
And politicians make a lot of money off of some of these things and become lobbyists. So, in
your opinion, do you think that we've fallen into like a trap then?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Which President Eisenhower warned us about.
Yes. Right. And how do you get out of it? This is unpopular, but it's raised taxes. If you look at other developed countries with the same standard of living, they're paying between 50 and 55% income tax.
Raised taxes on who?
Literally everyone. And that's not what people want to hear.
Germany, Finland, Norway, Sweden.
Yep.
Have higher tax burdens on their wealthiest people in the corporations.
Yes, they do.
And there's a patriotic feeling to paying those taxes too, by the way.
That's what I was about to say. Okay. We view taxes as a dirty word. It's a bad word. We don't like them. European countries view them as it's their duty. They feel like they should. It's patriotic to do. They do it to finance universal health care. They do it to finance universal schooling, universal college. They don't view it as you're taking my money. They're viewing it as this is the service I'm getting for my taxes, and it's a source of pride. And we don't have that in America.
Why do you think that is?
They are homogeneous way more than we are too. The gap between the rich and the poor is different. They don't have racial tensions that we've always had to deal with. I think it's kind of apples to oranges.
Well, but the gap between the rich and the poor is also going back to the taxation we're talking about, though.
But are they doing good with the taxes they already take from us? If you think yes, let's. Yeah, you know what I mean.
I get that argument too. Yeah. So are you already good stewards of our money? The answer is probably not.
Yeah. Where are our taxes going now? And then if we like it, let's raise them for certain people. And of course, the rich do pay the bulk. Are they paying enough? Probably not. There's corporate taxes they get out of. It's so complicated that I don't think there's a single solution. It's like all things, it's kind of complicated.
No, but you're probably killing anybody that's in comparative that's in here right now, because this is what we've been talking about all week. Countries that are alike, when they have people who are of the same descent, have held the same values, of the same ancestry, when you're talking about 80, 85, 90, 95% homogenous, their views are much more solid, and the nation can speak with one voice.
Yeah,
America doesn't speak with one voice.
Sure.
At least not now.
So in regards to like a solution, this is more of a question. For one, like we would have to have like a majority agreement in Congress to do any kind of raising taxes or anything like that. Do you think we have to almost hit rock bottom before they would ever choose to agree to try to fix it?
What does that? What's rock bottom in your opinion?
Like we are facing an economic collapse completely.
Default
on our loans. Government can't fund itself.
Yeah.
Creditors outside the country stop investing, which could be a reality.
Yeah, just a reminder, our country was built on compromise. The whole Constitutional Convention was compromise after compromise. What's the last infrastructure bill?
Yep.
I mean, that was surprising that was bipartisan. But, man, it's so much more difficult, I believe, because of the systematic situation we have where it's... And if you look, the enemy... The Republican Party thinking the Democratic Party is the enemy, and the Democrats thinking the Republican Party is the enemy, is at an all-time high. That's not good.
Do you think that that's real, or do you think that's partly a charade too? Because
No,
all
it
these
is
guys
a
behind the scene.
charade. It is a charade, and I have proof.
Okay, go ahead. All right.
No. Okay.
So when McCarthy could not get the votes for Speaker, so House rules weren't in effect, and all the cameras kept running, which they don't allow to happen when Congress is in session. So all of these people who go on all these talk shows and hate each other, and one's on CNN and one is Fox, guess what they were doing? They were laughing and joking around on that House floor. They were patting each other on the back, and they were engaging in, oh, look at so-and-so, it's so good to see you. It's a show.
Oh, yes.
To
I
get
agree.
reelected.
And
They don't hate each other.
I've said this for years. Until we get the money out of politics, I don't know that you'll ever see any real change. When there's so much money to be made by getting reelected, and you get billion-dollar donors and all that, that seems like a non-starter.
All right, next.
I'm Carter Meredith, and I've always been struggling with what I want to be when I grow up. Have you guys ever struggled with that? What was like your aha moment when you knew you were going to be a teacher?
I did not have that. I still haven't had that.
Well, when I quit practicing law, I had to figure something out.
Tell us why you hated being a lawyer, Mr. Nixon.
Whew,
We got.
there are a lot of reasons. To sum it all up,
Well, hold on. What kind of lawyer were you?
well, so I worked for the government. Big surprise, I'm the government teacher, if you didn't know. I spent 9 years in government service, worked my way up, was working for a political appointee here in the state. I was the deputy chief of an agency, and people suck. I don't know if you have me for class, I'm a big Parks and Rec fan. And if you don't know Parks and Rec, Leslie Knope is sort of the epitome of all things good that government can do. And I was kind of that optimist. And to see the real life, look, I know politics is dirty. And if any of you have me for AP Gov, you're like, you hate politics. Yes. It's because I lived it. And the backroom deals and the shady things and the unethical asks are all real. And I found myself not wanting to be a part of it, and not enjoying my life or who I was.
How did that lead you into teaching?
Well, I had to make a decision when I was in college. I had a professor that wanted me to go on and not go to law school, but to go into teaching. And I was like, no, I've wanted to be a lawyer since I was like 4th grade. And my mom taught for 36 years, and the only thing she ever said repeatedly was never be a teacher. And it wasn't that she liked teaching, it was because of the disrespect that was thrown at her in the profession. But now my sister and I are both teachers. And I love teaching, and it's great most of the time. But that was my sort of aha moment. Like, I don't like what I'm doing. Life is too short to live in a life that you don't enjoy. What will I enjoy? And that's my story.
Come down the line.
Oh, well, I don't, this is going to sound cheesy, but in kindergarten, when you draw those pictures and it's like, when I grow up, I want to be, I drew a teacher, but also this is my first job. I'm 24 years old, year 3 teaching. So maybe I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I'm still kind of figuring it out. But I mean, I did all the things, even in college semester before I graduated, I had people trying to convince me not to become a teacher. That was like a really big shocker for me. A lot of my family's in education, and then even some professors were like, you need to really look at what's happening in education and decide, like, is that what you want to pursue? And I remember like calling my mom my senior year, COVID, have mask on. I'm trying to teach in a public school, and I'm just upset because this wasn't what I pictured at all. And she's like, it's not too late to change your mind. And I was like, I got to stick it through. I got to push through. And I'm really glad I did. Not to be cheesy or emotional, but like every day I come to school and I'm so glad to see all these kids. And the kids make teaching. And I think that's what sold me in internship too, because I had COVID going on. It was crazy. I wasn't really happy with the work, but being around kids sold it.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. On the bad days, even when we're in bad moods, I mean, a good interaction with you guys can make that better. And remind me at least what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Okay, so when I was in kindergarten, we had an assignment to draw what we wanted to be. And I drew no, that's not true. That's not true. I'm very different. I grew up on a farm. And teaching is, to me, not difficult as far as like climate and sunburns and hay and all that. I was going to be a coach. I fell out of love of coaching over 5 years, and I fell in love with history. So I found passion in the job I had. Now, I'm going to give you my yearly preach. So here we go. Most people don't like their job, but they can't quit. Here's how it's very natural to not know what you want to do even through your 20s. So just take the stress away. Here's how you can help yourself. Number one, keep your debt low. If you have high debt, you are chained to a job that you might not can quit. When you have no debt and no family attachment, really, no permanent family attachment, you have the freedom to quit a job, move, follow your dreams, don't follow your dreams, change your mind. As soon as you accumulate debt or you start a family, those things might affect your choices in life. So I would say keep your debt low, pay for stuff in cash, start a savings account, don't start a family if you can help it until you figure out where you want to be in life. And you might be 30 years old before that happens, and that's okay if you do things correctly and eventually have the goal to own land or property, a house. Okay, I'm done.
What my advice to you, Carter, would be stay flexible with your options, and that kind of ties in with what Pumphrey's saying too. But I'll also say this. I think that we do a disservice when we push you to feel that you have to know who you're going to be and what you're going to do before you step out of the high school. 18 years old, you're supposed to have your whole life figured out. It's supposed to be planned out, and you've got it's going to be this way forever because I want it that way? Or is it because you want it that way because you've thought that through? Or is it because your parents want you to do that? Or your friends have a certain thing, and you're going to go this to meet and please other people? Like, you have to really kind of think that through. And learn to be able to detach from things that are negative and give yourself the freedom and the option to go, you know what, I freaking don't know. I don't know, and that's okay. And if you have a plan and you want to follow that plan, then bravo. But if you are confused and you're like, I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure I want to go to school. I don't think we do a good job with that either. We push kids towards college. Everybody got to go to college. And for some people, college is absolutely the best route. But for some people, it's not. Some people it's going to be military. Some people it's going to be trade school. Some people it's going to be some other form or fashion that gets them where they need to go. And you need to give yourself a break to explore ideas and do it now while it's safe, by the way. Like, it might give you a step in the right direction to say, well, what else is there that I might not have been thinking about? But if you do find yourself trapped in something that you really don't enjoy, like, don't spend the rest of your life miserable. Find a way out. It might be tricky. It might be difficult. And I'll give you my story as a case in point, but it can be done. The teaching's a second career for me, and I'm kind of like you guys when they were like, a lot of my family's in education. My mom taught, my dad taught for a while, my uncle, aunts. I've got all kinds of people in education. My wife teaches. My daughter's now a teacher, so it's in our blood, seemingly. But I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to do that. I was like, sort of teenage angst, and you're going to be a teacher like everybody else. I'm like, the hell I am. You can't tell me what to do. So I had that going on. It's the 70s. The 70s, yeah. I'm Gen X, straight up. So I anyway, out of college, end up in business. I was in retail management was successful at that, doing well, but the hours became grueling. The deeper I got into that, the more I felt stuck in that scenario and in that cycle. And before I left, the last couple of years that I was there, like I didn't have a vacation, I didn't have a full day off in like 3 years. I was working an average of 93 hours a week. It was killing me physically and mentally. It was straining our relationship. I barely saw my kids. My daughter, who was about 3 or 4-ish, I guess, at that time, my wife would bring them out to the store to see me because by the time I got home, they were often in bed. And so they would come out, and she pulled up one day, and my daughter, a little innocent 4-year-old, she was like, look, at Daddy's house, pointing at the store. And my wife told me that, it broke my freaking heart. I was like, oh, my God. Like, what is this? This is not what I intended. I was right, just bogged down and confused about what I should do. I'm 33 years old, 2 kids, new house, career that I thought I was going to do, and I'm good at it, but I don't like it. And it was killing me. And fortunately enough, my wife is very supportive, and she said, you should get out. You should go back to school. You should be a teacher. You'd be good at it. And I was like, I don't know anything about I'm an adult. I know this. I know these things, but I don't know how to teach. What would I even teach? What would I do? What subject would I teach? I didn't have a clue. I was able to get out, though. Honestly, I was pushed out, and I'm grateful for that now. I got into it with the owner of the store I was with, and they were like, see ya. And I was like, well, see ya. And now I had to figure out what I was going to do, right? But I had to talk about debt. It took me a long time to pay off those new student loans. I had to work jobs as best I could to support what I was doing because I had to go to school full time. I had to burn through that system as fast as I could. Not wanting to be a coach either, by the way. I was like, I decided on history. History school, I always well, that sounds good to me. And then everybody said, you're not going to make it. What are you going to coach? I said, I'm not going to coach. I'm going to teach history. And they said, you'll never get a job. You'll never get a job because they're looking for that duality. A lot of history teachers or math teachers or whatever, science teachers happen to also be coaches. It's a way to help make yourself more marketable. But I didn't want to do that. Fortunately, everything worked out, and I'm in a great position. And I work with great people. But it was a leap of faith, absolutely. And it was scary as hell. But it's so worth it now looking back. 20-something years later, it's so much worth the risk that we took to do something that was ultimately, it helped me find myself again. It helped me remember who I was again. It helped me be the caring and honest and earnest person that I wanted to be. It's similar to what Nixon was talking about with the political stuff, I think. The corporate mentality just drains people's souls, and I'm a living witness to that. So, long story short, give yourself a break and be flexible.
Hi, I'm Dana Montgomery. So, if you take the entirety of the Lakeside High School faculty, you lock them in the high school.
Here we go.
And to get out, it has to be the last one standing. Who's making it out?
Here, ready? The standard answer.
McInvale.
Linda McInvale, she will tear through everybody in that school.
Fueled on the Diet Mountain Dew.
Yes, the Diet Mountain Dew speed walk can outrun any prey. She's going to make it out.
It's her superpower, man, yeah. We're just going to team up behind her and go with her.
Yeah, just block her, go. Yeah, we're following her.
Hey, you think I'm kidding? We have a plan.
Yeah,
it's a crisis plan.
We've discussed this. Yeah, we're prepared.
Sorry. Who would be the first person to go?
Oh, no.
Maybe we don't want to answer that.
I didn't see that.
I'm Frankie Colgrove.
Sorry.
And my question is, why do you think there's been such a big divide in the political landscape of the United States? Why has everyone become so hateful and aggressive towards each other?
Well, Pumphrey's going to tell you the Bill Clinton impeachment and Newt Gingrich.
Well, I mean, look, you can go back to Jefferson and Adams. It's part of who America is, okay? I know it seems crazier, and that's because everybody knows about it because of the thing called the internet, social media. The news outlets are now partisan, so it's everywhere. But ever since the beginning, it was divided. And I do think Newt Gingrich and nationalization of politics made things worse. And 24-hour news, CNN, and Fox competing. It seems worse now. Just like violence seems worse now, even though this is the all-time lowest violence in world history. It seems worse because we see it all. So I wouldn't get I'm trying to be optimistic, thinking that politics aren't quite as divided. Like you said, it's a show more than anything because they're on TV. Presidents didn't used to have to be on TV. It didn't matter because there was no such thing. So
when was it that the senators were like beating each other with canes?
That's early. We'll talk about that. That's our first Congress, 1790s. I mean, look, in Arkansas in the 1830s, 1840s, somebody got stabbed by a knife over a wolf restriction thing. Like people get stabbed in Congress. That doesn't happen quite as much anymore, I don't think. It's more of a show. So I think it's not as bad as it seems.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always going to be Bush versus Gore. Once the Supreme Court decided an election, it's been downhill from that because it took away the faith that a lot of people had in elections to begin with. And I think you're seeing that grow as each election grows, how many people believe that elections are rigged or that they're not fair. And that sort of mistrust eats away at the foundation.
I think a lot of it's just media, but then also I was sitting here thinking if there's like certain events that have caused more divide, do you think COVID itself could have possibly added to that?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It should have been we've talked about this. It should have been our rally around the flag moment. And if you don't know what that means, it means in a time of crisis, a country normally comes together. After 9/11, President Bush had a 91% approval rating for a president. That's insanely high, yeah. We did not have that with COVID, national emergency, and we did not rally around one another. In fact, we divided further.
But yeah, and a question we get every year. Look, we started this podcast when Obama was in office. And a question we get every year is, why does politics seem so divided today? But I will say, with every event, it does seem to get worse. And I think COVID definitely escalated. And if you go back and listen to old podcast, we said alien invasion, superbug. These are the things, you can't make them partisan because it applies to anybody. And of course, we figured out a way. Kudos.
We
to
did
make
it.
partisan. Okay, so yeah. Next.
I'm Merrick Lukens. We have seen what seems to be a never-ending growing hatred between the two main political parties, to the point of what seems like segregation in areas where you shouldn't express your views in fear of something happening to you because you are in the minority. Do you believe that this tension between the two political parties will boil over to a civil war? And if so, how long do you believe before someone pulls that trigger?
Okay, I'll just quickly say I don't think it'll be a civil war like it was. I don't think you got the North versus the South. Everybody's mixed together. But you could have a digital civil war that could spill over into violence on the streets if it kept escalating enough. And we've already kind of seen some of that. So the Civil War might not be like it starts here and ends here, and then we have a peace treaty. It might occur on and off for the next 20 years until something major happens or whatever. So I think it's just going to, the way we view a civil war, I don't think it's going to be that.
That kind of goes back to what you were saying about the charade that politics actually is, because behind the scenes, they're not sniping at each other the way you think they are, but they will gladly pretend to be so filled with hatred towards the other side to gain some sort of popularity, get some sort of extra voting, to outdistance themselves. I mean, politics is competitive, and so it's cutthroat. I get that, but at the same time, it's the ruthlessness which they will speak about each other, and then but people who are easily misled, let's say, or who believe in the charade, don't know how to tone that back down. Don't realize that there's stuff going on that they don't. Right, it's not what it seems on the surface, and people will take action based on misinformation, or they believe that they need to support one side over the other. Like I just don't, but I don't know how to predict where that'll go. I don't know how to predict where that'll launch up. I do think that small pockets of things might happen, which, I mean, how much of it's just rhetoric and how much of it's, you know what I'm saying?
In 30 years, we could look back and go, I guess that last Civil War we had started with the January 6th, and then it skipped a year, and then this happened, and then it got escalated. Like, we could be in it and not really know it. I just don't think it's going to look anything like the last one where there's a start and a finish.
Do you think that changes the dynamic now that Gen Z is getting old enough to vote, and they seem very motivated to make changes, to have a change of the guard, to get the old system out, to have more direct process and planning for the people who actually are asking for help and aren't getting it from the people who are in charge. So maybe that's the revolution. Maybe it's not a civil war in, like I said, that violent sense, but maybe it's like a change of the system at the top, because young people are now engaged in voting and angry and demanding better from the people who are elected, who they're electing into office. I mean, maybe that's it. It's not so much a war, but a shift in.
I hope so. I mean, politics
leadership.
doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have. The world is so much different than it was in the 1890s, except politics. Old people in a room arguing with each other. It's like, do we have to do it this way? You know, you kids, maybe you have a better idea that could be better than what we're doing now, where they all have to go to a capital, Washington, D.C., and go vote, and then it goes, maybe there's a different way to do it that will emerge out of the dust.
Hey, is it true that some states are trying to raise, can states raise their voting age, or is that a federal thing?
No, it's a federal thing.
Okay, that's what I thought. Is there any truth to the idea that people are suggesting to raise the voting age to 25? Is that real?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have a Republican candidate, Vivek Ramaswamy, that wants to raise it to 25, which would require a constitutional amendment.
I knew I'd heard it, but I couldn't remember where.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a direct reaction to the threat that they feel that you are, to keep people your age from voting in the next thing. If you lift that up, then it takes away your ability to change them. Yeah, so that's.
Yeah,
were there people who applauded when he said that?
What blows my mind is there are young people. I have some in my AP Gov classes that support him. I'm like, you would be able to vote in the next election and then theoretically lose that right to vote for a period of years.
Wow.
Should that happen?
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to be sinking in.
Yeah, I'm hoping you guys have a solution because millennials got hit sideways with all this. But by the way, baby boomers are still in charge for some reason.
Well, yeah.
Gen Z, the young, y'all grew up with a smartphone. You're more skeptical. You're more open-minded, it seems like, than millennials, and definitely my Nintendo generation that didn't do anything. So,
well, I would even say that Gen Z is just like more involved politically, and they know more because just talking to students on a daily basis. When I was most of their age, I was a junior, sophomore when Trump was elected for the first time in high school, and I didn't really know anything. I just remember, there's a celebrity getting put into office. This is weird. But I'll talk to them, and they know more than me sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You were a junior in high school when Trump got elected?
Yeah.
You can go back and listen to our podcast reaction.
That's true.
I'm Teddy Headway. I was wondering how you think the war in Ukraine is going to end and what needs to be done to maintain stability in Europe post-war.
I think it's to be determined, honestly.
Yeah, it's still way up in the air at this point, man. There's. It depends on whether our continued increased support makes a difference in their fight to push the Russians out of their territory. Which there's a counteroffensive going on right now after 18 months of war. 18 freaking months of war. So that's a year and a half for you guys that are bad at math. They were losing, and then there's been more and more help from us and other allies that we have in the region, and it seems to have been making a difference, but slow, painfully slow, like deadly slow. They're losing a lot of people in this push to try to regain territory, and Russia is looking for allies too, right? So it's hard to get good information out of Russia itself, so you don't know exactly how. Are they actually being depleted? Have they lost enough people? Have they lost enough enthusiasm for the war that seemed to have been there at the beginning?
Russia is not one to quit unless they lose a lot.
Right. And historically, and this is something that you guys that are sophomores will learn eventually, like Russia just historically sucks at war. And so will they actually win this? I don't. And it's hard to say, yeah. But at the same time, they're like courting China and say, hey, can we get some stuff from y'all? And there's and there's about to be a meeting with Kim Jong-un, and like, can we get some stuff from y'all? And I mean, it has the potential to drag itself out. But the longer it takes, the worse it is for Russia particularly.
And there are voices in the U.S. that don't mind this. When we pulled out of Afghanistan, there were some murmurs about the military-industrial complex. Hey, we're not in a war somewhere. And then all of a sudden Ukraine happened, and it's like, all right, let's start making tanks again. Good, let's fire it back up. Mm-hmm. There are people in the U.S. that are benefiting quite a bit off of this conflict. So don't overlook that point. Not to say that we're necessarily outwardly encouraging it, but it's a shame that
I would hate to think that we're purposefully slowing it down so that we can continue to sell like that would be really problematic.
But Republicans of the two parties, they're more sympathetic to the Russians, which is, if you knew about the Cold War, that's such a weird situation we're in.
We'll hit some Cold War stuff. Like old school Reagan Republicans would flip their lids right now to see anybody suggesting that we should be more friendly with Russia than anybody else. That is just, that as a person who grew up and through the Cold War, that is just mind-boggling to me to see people go, For example, people, would you vote for Vladimir Putin or Joe Biden? And they're like, well, Putin, obviously, and I was like, what?
There are two words that we have said more in the last 4 or 5 years than ever before. Well, usually, and then we say something.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't apply much in the last 4. Things are different.
That's a weird flip, though, boy. So yeah, it's odd that, and that goes back to this culture war political thing that's being driven in our country about righteousness and who's who has traditional values. I've heard people say that. Well, Putin supports traditional values. Yeah, he's a freaking authoritarian dictator, monstrous. I mean, there's a whole list of like war criminal. Like we just check the boxes of all the horrible things dude has done. Why we should not support someone like that. And yet there are people on our side going, like that should get somebody's attention. Like that should make your heart skip a little bit to think that we love and cozy up to dictatorial bastards like that guy.
All right, this is going to be the lightning round over the next 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, yeah,
I'm Jacob Moss, and my question is, in 100 years, what do you think the importance of Donald Trump will have in history books?
Depends on the next election.
What do the robots think of Donald Trump? Is that what you're saying?
What does AI say?
Yeah. Let's ask ChatGPT.
ChatGPT,
in 100
yes.
years. Somebody pull that up.
They'll be able to.
But don't you think that I'm onto something with that, though? Depending on the results of the next election.
It does. 100%.
You could see a trend, and I'm not predicting that, but you could see a trend where they go, okay, we're not going to talk about it this way. We're not going to be allowed to talk about it this way. Like this whole censorship issue, and you can say certain things and you can't say certain things. You can teach certain things. You can explore certain things, or you can't. Like I can.
Yeah, if it causes permanent changes, then that will be considered an influential presidency. If it goes back to some status quo of yesteryear, then he'll be a footnote. It'll be a celebrity got elected without any military experience or political experience, which might be a good thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
I mean, January 6th is definitely going to be in the book.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you think it's more his presidency that will be remembered, his influence that he had on people or in the political parties, I guess?
It'll be that, yeah.
Yeah, when I say Richard Nixon, you don't think deal with China and détente, you think Watergate. A lot of times it's the evil, bad stuff that you remember
most. When you say Richard Nixon, do you think EPA, environmental protections? Do you think, positive immigration policies? Do you think reaching out to no, you don't think any of that. You go Watergate, criminality.
All right, next.
Hey, I'm River Cook. Mr. Franklin, do you think you could take over the Roman Empire with a fully charged iPhone?
Fully charged.
You know what I would do to get them to believe in me and my powers as like a godlike leader? I would get my weather app and I would go, okay, I'm going to predict that there will be rain in 10 days. When it rains in 10 days, they were like, bow down to this master of all things. Yeah, so maybe.
By the way, Europeans did that to Native Americans when they came over.
True.
Because they knew a little bit more about that. And they got worshipped.
Look at our talking leaves.
Yeah. An eclipse.
That's some good cell service if you get.
It depends on the towers. I don't know if just turn the light on.
Oh yeah, just
worship me.
That works too,
dude. I would use every technological advantage I could bring back with me, though. Convince them that I'm like at least half God. And let them fear what happens if they cross me. And
then we would immediately die of the plague.
Yeah, I was about to say you would probably just get sick and die.
Damn it.
Hi, I'm Heather Domeries, and my question kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier about people paying taxes and feeling like it's their duty and everything. Do you feel like the politicians and all that stuff kind of fuel people's individualism and like people don't care enough about anything else that's going on except in their little bubble, and that the politicians fuel that so much that we don't have the same regard for our country as other places do, or as we did, say, 100 years ago?
I'll follow the money on that one a little bit. I think that when you corporatize any entity that's supposed to benefit more people, but it's like there's profit margins and there's lots of power and authority at stake, and the profits that come along from that. Even I think I think they use that as a fuel. So I think it benefits them to have us think about each other as separate groups, because if we unite as a group of people, we can demand more from them. And I'm not criticizing all politicians. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But I think that there are people who are entrenched in positions of power that are just not willing to see Or maybe they're beholden to somebody else who's bought and paid for them that then won't allow them to say things that would take away corporate profits, like the money in politics thing. Well, I can't think of the name of the thing. When the Supreme Court ruled
Citizens United, when
they ruled that money was speech.
And corporations are people.
Corporations are people. I think that was a huge, and like I said, I think we've been trending in that direction for a long time anyway, because there's backroom deals and lobbyists and all that. But yeah, I think it to keep us divided is actually beneficial to some of the people at the top of the chain.
But I will say this too. I mean, there is at least partial blame to be placed on us, because a lot of people don't know that the highest tax bracket in the Eisenhower administration was about 92% on the richest people.
Well, would you blame that on the people or the fact that nobody's telling them that? I mean,
well,
would you just stumble across that information on your own?
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the paradigm. If you're a responsible citizen in government, you research and become an informed citizen who votes. But we don't do that anymore. So I think it's dual blame. I think it's the system, and I think it's the voter.
I don't disagree. Yeah.
And if you just look, I mean, the practicality, that song that got so popular, Richmond, North of Richmond, you can disagree with the song and think that's silly. You can agree with the song, but you can't deny millions and millions and millions of people latched on to that message, which at least the first part is like, there's a lot of freeloaders. I'm working hard to pay my taxes. I don't know where the money goes. And then there's rich people that are making all these decisions. Like, whether you agree or not, there is a lot of resentment in the country thinking that I work hard, I pay my taxes, yet I'm barely making ends meet. And then there's these people, corporate rich people who don't have to pay any taxes. And there's freeloaders. So whether it's true or not.
But to promote those differences and to fuel that, fan the flames, that keeps people from uniting as a voting bloc that would then change the system, right? So that's part of the point I want to make too.
Politics are fanning the flames as they do.
My name is Joshua Weed, and if you were to give one piece of advice to the seniors of 2024, what would it be?
Keep your debt low. Don't start a family until you have to. Here's one, okay? A lot of you have dreams like, I want to be a lawyer, or maybe not. I want to be a marine biologist. I want to be Please shadow somebody who does it.
Yes.
Because what you see on the internet and what they teach you in college is not the job. If you take education classes in college for what it's like to be a teacher, that's not what it's like to be a teacher. Most people are cool and will let you shadow them. So don't say, I'm going to be a marine biologist, and you've never followed one around, and then you go to college and waste 4 years, and then you finally get the job and go, wow, I don't like this. So try to find someone who actually does the job that you want or something similar, and go follow them around for a day. They'll let you. People are pretty cool about that. And then that'll give you a better understanding about that decision.
My advice, Joshua Weed, would be not to rush through your senior year. Don't hope for it. Don't get that senioritis so badly that you just go, I want to be out of here. I don't need this. I'm ready for the next thing. And being ready for the next thing is important. I get that. But at the same time, don't be in such a rush that you miss what's happening in front of you. Yeah. Live now and enjoy this and take those moments. And sometimes I hear seniors sometimes like, well, that's silly. I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. I don't want to participate. Be that person. Have school spirit. Join in with friends, and you guys enjoy this moment, because you will never be here again. You will never have this experience again. You will never be this group of people again. Come together and feel this moment. Like, don't skip it. Later on you'll wish you hadn't been in such a rush. So just take your time. Take every moment as it comes, good or bad. Be it. You know what I mean?
Adding on to that, you're still a kid. Be a kid. That's the biggest thing, because you don't have to grow up fast. So have fun.
Hi, I'm Morgan Humble, and I was wondering, do you think that science or the government are hiding important developments from citizens?
Yes.
Are we talking about aliens now? Yeah, probably. Okay, have you seen? I remember being a kid, and I was like so fascinated. Like, I don't believe in aliens, but I want to believe in aliens. You follow what I'm saying? Like, there's no definitive proof to me. And there's always been, are they hiding something? I remember when I was a kid, there was something called Project Blue Book, and supposedly, and now the Pentagon and others are like, well, here's this picture of this thing, here's the video, and we don't know what it is. And I always kind of assumed that if that moment came, people would like lose their minds, like, oh, we're not alone. But people shrugged. It's like, yeah, we freaking knew it all along. It's kind of weird to me. So, but is there more to that story? Remember the whistleblower guy about a month ago who was like, they have a body?
I mean, I don't know if they have a body, but I mean, I definitely think they're maybe hiding some bodies. I mean, the government has
They've always
secrets.
done
that. The government has secrets. We don't know the whole story. We likely don't know the whole story on most of the decisions that are made day to day.
I have to believe if Trump knew that, he'd tell somebody. It would be out. We would know. I don't think they told him. Maybe. Because if he had access, hey guys,
we're laughing, but
you won't believe this.
the Clintons are notorious for their belief and want to declassify UFO information. And Bill Clinton has been interviewed several times, and he says he was pushed back as commander in chief. Yeah, he was like, they dragged their feet. So yeah.
The mystery deepens.
Hey, I'm Pesha Eric, and I want to know what's your favorite cartoon from your childhood?
That's going to be a different answer for all of us, I think.
Well, I think mine would shock you guys. Are you ready for this? Story, real quick. I never had cable television growing up, so it was just like VCR and DVD. Gumby.
Really?
Gumby.
Okay. Yeah. I bet half of them don't know what Gumby is.
I would not have expected Gumby.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't have expected Gumby.
When I was real little, I liked Muppet Babies, we make our dream come true. Bop-be-doobie-bop down. Sorry. I just like the theme song probably, but they imagined, and I really enjoyed that.
I was a big He-Man fan.
He-Man and Skeletor.
Yeah. Castle Grayskull. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, me too. I had all the...
The original Scooby-Doo.
Oh, that's a good one.
Not this trash that's on now. Not this weird... No. Like original, kind of spooky, especially for little kids. Like bats are flying all around, and the mystery machine, and it was like this. There was kind of this aura of macabre theater to it,
Oh,
and I was always scared, just like Scooby and Shaggy. Man, I was like, what's gonna happen? Yeah. So yes, that was always a good one.
All right.
Do it again.
My name's Hunter Bullock, and I'm wondering what your favorite song is right now.
Muppet Babies, we make our dream. It has been for 30 years, people.
You guys have been singing the what's it? The show, The Bell. Is it reminding you of Saved by the Bell? Y'all been singing Saved by the Bell
we were
in the
doing that in the
hallway.
hallway.
When I wake up in the
new
morning.
bell sounds fake. It sounds like from Saved by the Bell for all the older people. It sounds like the made up one on that. So we were literally in the hall today singing the Saved by the Bell theme song.
Also, the 4 dings for the minute warning. Just understand the third ding is a little delayed. Ding, 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 ding. I don't know why they did that, but it drives me nuts.
It irritates me.
Sorry.
He mentions it every day.
Be tempo. Come on.
My favorite song right now.
Taylor Swift.
No, it's not Taylor Swift right now. Used to Be Young, the new Miley Cyrus song.
That is a good song.
Oh.
What is it?
Used to Be Young by Miley Cyrus. I think it's kind of her. She's reflecting on her youth and being a Disney star. And
How
all
old is
that
she?
Stuff.
30?
30?
What?
I think she has to be a
Miley
little bit older.
Cyrus is 30 years old?
Jesus,
Jesus, I'm old.
Yeah,
that doesn't seem like possible.
She has a really low voice, too, even though she can sing pretty high.
She does have a deep voice. High, low register. Man, I don't have a favorite song right now, honestly. I've got way too much classic rock in my head to pick one. It just depends on the mood that I'm in, So something from AC/DC currently, probably.
Currently? From the 70s?
Yeah, currently from the 70s, yeah.
What's up? My name's Atticus. I'm wondering if you four would make a good Fortnite lobby.
I'm probably the only one that plays Fortnite.
I didn't understand anything you said.
I played Fortnite once and it was a disaster.
There you go.
Like I couldn't figure out what I was doing. I kept dying like instantly. People were like, "Come on, man, it's just," and I was like, "I won't."
I had spaghetti a fortnight ago, but
I mean, there were only basically 4 buttons when we grew up, and now there's so many.
No, back up, dude. I had joystick and one button.
I had the Atari. I had
Atari
the joystick. Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't think
4
we would.
buttons. Look at you. 4 buttons.
Last question.
My name's Cannon Ellis, and I was wondering what y'all's favorite colors were.
What
color?
Favorite
color?
Being green.
Green. I like green.
Purple.
Back in black. AC/DC reference for you kids that don't know things. Was that it? Yeah. We end on the favorite color. Hey, thank you guys for coming out. We appreciate it. Collective Coffee. Yes.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Woo.